How can you know what matters and what doesn't matter in your PhD research? So this is a question that I recently got from a client of mine, and we were discussing a little bit the structure and how to put her work together into a thesis that makes sense, and we were discussing that, and she said, yeah, but which criteria do I use to decide what should stay and what should go when it comes to my research? And I said, wow, this is an excellent topic for a video, because I think that many people are also in the same situation, especially if you are in the last stage of your PhD, trying to see like which results do I put in, which do I maybe need some more work, so they are not quite solid enough to put in my final thesis and work and so on. So I want to say that how can we do that? Like, how do we decide? The most important thing that is the criteria for that decision is the narrative and the story that you're telling. So when we know that research needs to have a story. And when I mention a story, I don't mean like, oh, there is this, I don't know, the thing that happened and then this happened. No. We are telling a story about, look, this is the research gap that we have. This is what we don't know. And this is interesting for that and that reason. And we thought of finding out more about that in this way. And then this didn't work, but this worked. And this worked and showed this and this. So basically, this is the story that you're telling. And when you fit all your research into that, you have to be really, really careful about deciding whether this is telling a story that makes sense with the broader results or not. So this is actually not a trivial thing at all when it comes to papers or thesis, because what you can see, this is something that you can see quite clearly. For example, when you read papers, there are some papers that are impossible to read, impossible to understand. And then on the other hand, there are papers that are interesting, they are written in a good way, they are even funny to read and fun to read and really exciting to read because they are written in that way. So what is the difference between one and the other is that the paper that is interesting to read likely has a story. So the authors really put in some thoughts of, okay, how can we put it together as something interesting? Whereas in the other case, I would say that unfortunately that's even the majority. Those people said, okay, we're just going to put all that we have into a paper, a publication, we're going to wrap it up and call it a day. However, that's the criteria. When you have a bunch of data, and in a PhD you collect a lot of data, a lot of results, you have to be really, really careful about crafting the narrative so that it makes sense. That's the first criteria. And then it needs to be coherent, right? So how do you decide which results you put in? So you do not put in the results that are really not useful to the story. For example, some mid-result. For example, you have your big result, and then there are some 3 or 4 results that are prior to that led to that big result. Maybe those things can go to the supplementary. There is no need to put it into the main thing or in the thesis in your appendix or something like that. So that's the story. That's the decision and the criteria in order to make sure you sort of establish the hierarchy of what is the most important thing, and then what is second most important, and what are the things that are not that important and are maybe just going to be mentioned in the supplementary part of your paper. Having said that, if you are right now in that stage of your PhD, you are wrapping it up and you feel that nothing makes sense, that you have a bunch of results all over the place, half-finished drafts, your deadline is coming closer and closer, but you cannot force yourself to make sense of all of that. This is exactly what I help PhDs do. So if you are in that situation right now, I want to invite you to schedule a completely free intro coaching call with me. I will leave a link where you can schedule it down below in the description. And in that call, we discuss exactly where you're at with your research and what are some next steps that you can take, some actionable next steps that you can take in order to be a little bit closer to that finish line, whether it's on your own or with my help. And of course, we discuss your struggles, your challenges, and see if we are a good fit to work together. So I hope that you found this video useful, and as always, see you in the next few days with another video. Bye-bye.